And now for something completely different.
Studio One, this is pretty much what comes up right here. And it's kind of cool because you have like the little news feed over here. So this is kind of like if you're connected to the internet, you can kind of have like these are all tutorial videos and just kind of some resources that you can have, which is pretty cool. All your files get saved over here. And you can make a little artist profile and stuff like that. I haven't done that yet. Studio One is also linked to SoundCloud. So if you have a SoundCloud account, you can link your SoundCloud to Studio One and and do that. So it's pretty cool. You got a lot of cool features here. So like I said, you have all your tracks over here, right? Now to create a new session this is to create a new session. This is to open up recent session. And then this, I'm not sure. I think this is joining Studio One Plus subscription. I want to say that that's what that is for, which I do actually have. But you have songs, and then you have projects, and there's shows. This is for like live stuff. So, and this is just files. So if you go, what's cool about Studio One is one of the only DAW software out there, digital audio workstation softwares, that has a full mastering page dedicated to mastering. Most of the time, you have to get like a program called Sequoia or something like that to do masters. But what's cool is that Studio One has an actual project page. So if you go here and you click on the plus sign to open it up, right? This is like to record and mix. Master and release is what I'm talking about. Then you have to rehearse and perform for like live stuff. This is for like if you're wanting to do audio loops, things like that. This is also another record feature here. But basically, we'll open this up first. So we don't need to name it. We'll just leave it at that, right? We'll just open up this. We'll actually change this to 48K just because I like 48K. So these are all your sample rates. So 44.1 kilohertz is traditionally what CDs, the sample rate of CDs were. They were 16-bit 44.1. Now, a lot of recordings nowadays in the kind of digital world go to the 48K. It's usually 2448. And then you have 88.2 kilohertz, and then you have 96 kilohertz. So there'd be like 32-bit float, 96 kilohertz. That's like the really high resolution audio. But for this purposes, since what I'm doing for mastering is I'm releasing digital stuff. So if I'm not making it for a CD, then I'm going to set my session to be 48. So it'll be 24 or 48. So anyway, you open this up, and this brings you to, so this is the mastering page, which is really awesome. So what's cool about this, right, is, we can try and load up something here. Let me see if I can, I won't be able to play the audio back, but I can at least load up a file in here. So let's see. Let's get we'll just throw this in there. This isn't an entire song, but we'll just go ahead and we'll just add that. We'll just add that there. So it's going to do its, wow. It's going to actually take 9 minutes to import that. So, okay, we're not going to do that because we're not going to sit here and wait 9 minutes for that. But anyway, you would load your track in there, and then basically you have your tracks down here. And what's cool is you can actually, I'll make this window just a little bit smaller so you can kind of see more down here. But this is where all your tracks will live, right? So you can actually do an entire album here, where you have all your tracks laid out here. This right here is your meter, so you're going to see your peak levels and everything. Then you have your phase meter right here. This is more of another way to see what your audio is doing as well. And this is where all your processing goes here. And so it's really cool. So this, and then after you're done, you have all the different ways that you can basically export this track. So you have, your digital release, which is going to, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, all those places, right? Then you have your DDP, which traditionally this is like metadata stuff. This is like when you're doing a CD, and this is like, oh, this is the artist, this is the composer, this is the arranger, this is the producer and the mix engineer, and you can fill all that information out. And those are like required deliverables for a lot of labels and things like that. So you can do that. And then you can burn it into a CD and things like that. So this is really cool that this is one of the only DAWs that really has a dedicated mastering page. So this is really, really, really awesome. So if we go back to the home page here, let me see if I actually have a project I can actually pull up here. Yeah, looks like I do. So I'll go ahead and just, we're not going to save that. So we'll go here. Oh, that's right, because I saved it in a different spot, so it might not open up that way. That's okay. We don't have to do that right now. So coming back to the homepage, so that was the project page. So now this is kind of to start the session. Good thing to know is this is where you select your audio engine. This is where you select your interface and what you're using to actually record. All of your hardware devices will be right here. So usually it'll show a picture, especially if it's a PreSonus product, it'll show the picture of the device. If it's not a PreSonus product, probably won't see a picture here. You'll see some sort of like a symbol, but basically this is where you would go and do your audio setup. So playback device, recording device. So we're playing back the audio through the USB 96 and we're recording through it. And then you can do the device block size is the buffer size. And then sample rate like we talked about here. And then, your latency settings here. Good thing to know, hardware buffer sizes, right? When you're mixing, I generally set mine at a higher buffer size for more processing power with plugins, right? So, because plugins take up a lot of CPU, especially if you have a bunch on a track. They take a lot of CPU. So you want kind of a higher buffer size to make up for that. When you're recording, you kind of want to stay at the 32 to 64 range to give you to maximize the amount of to account for the latency is what I mean. Is not, you don't want a bunch of latency, which is like delay, and you don't want that in your recording. So if you were to record at 1024, there might be some latency issues, especially with hardware, analog hardware. You'll get a lot of latency with that. So we have that set. So now when we open up the session, which I already have it open, so we're just going to click up here. Oops, that's the wrong thing. We're going to click on that. That's what we want. So my computer's kind of slow right now. I apologize for that. So this is what it looks like inside of the session, right? So I'm going to close the mixer. So this is what it looks like in the edit window. This is where you record. You have all these different controls up here. You have all these different controls down here and stuff. And see, so what's cool about Studio One is you kind of have like an idea of everything. If you're using MIDI stuff, it kind of shows you that right here in the bottom left-hand corner. This shows your CPU performance and what's happening with that. You see this right here. You have a bunch of different. This shows your sample rate right here. So you have your sample rate. You can change to, okay, I want to look at samples, bars, frames, or seconds, depending on what you're doing. Same thing with here. This is all your transport controls, so it's got everything that every DAW has, right? The same thing up here. But what's cool about Studio One is that a lot of stuff is just drag and drop, Oh, you want to put a file in here? Drag and drop it, right? So with that being said, I'm not going to go too much in depth on what all of these buttons are, but these are a lot of your editing features up here and things like that. We're not going to go through much of that stuff right now. So basically, I like to color code things a lot, specifically, and I do a lot of that on purpose here. So I love to make my drums blue, my guitars green, and all of my vocals red. Why I do that, I don't know. It's just something that I like to do. So um, I like to have that color coding so I know what things are. So I don't even have to think about it. I can look and be like, okay, this is a drum track. Okay, this is a guitar track. Okay, this is a vocal track. So this just makes it easy that like looking at the session, I don't even have to like wonder where things are. I know where they are because of the color coding. So then you come over here, right? And so then you have your different tabs. This is like if you're using software instruments, right? You have like the ones that come with Studio One, or you have a bunch that, if you have any like third party ones, they'll show up over here as well. But these are, if you had an instrument track, you drag this on there and then you can make cool, funny sounds and stuff. All your effects is going to be all your processing. So this is where all your EQs and your reverbs and all your fancy, playful little tools are, editing tools and things like that. Loops, don't have any loaded on here right now, but the loops are basically like sound samples where you can just, drag and drop things in and make cool stuff. Files are like if you have files saved on your computer, your desktop, or something, you want to drag those in. Like we tried to drag this into that project session, right? Like that's where these live, is in the files tab, and then cloud and shop and all that other stuff. That's more of that. But so then you have this is your edit down here, where you can now have more of a closer view of one of these guys. So if I was to come down here and select this guitar track, it's going to show up right here, and it kind of shows the waveform, which is pretty cool. So it gives you more of a zoomed in look at what the audio waveform actually looks like within the session, which could be useful for many different things, especially if you're doing some very surgical editing and you're really getting nitty gritty in here and you're really trying to like get in there and make shit happen. Then most definitely. So that's the edit feature. Then you open up the mixer, right? This is the one that I love. This looks like the mixing board. And so like I said before, I color code everything. So all my drums are blue, guitars are green, and vocals are red. And what I like to do is I always work left to right, or they call it top-down mixing. So, I always start with the drums, and I just work my way this way. And I just go and I kind of solo everything as I'm going, and then I'll unsolo and kind of blend everything together. And so that's what I tend to do a lot of the times. What's cool about Studio One as well is, if you for some reason don't like your mixer to be down here, like let's just say you have two screens. I don't. I only have one screen. But if you had if you had a monitor set up where you have two different screens, you can actually if there's a little arrow over here, and if you click on this arrow, it makes the mixer portable. So you can drag this to a whole different little section if you wanted to put it on a different window. And now you have two separate windows where you have your editor, and then you have your mix window over there. Some people like that. I used to do that all the time when I had a laptop and a monitor, and I'd have my mixer down here on my laptop, and I'd have my monitor up here with the edit window. Just made it easier, to do things with. But then if you want it to go back, you just click that arrow again. And boom, it comes back. So that's what's really cool. And then my favorite feature, I'm going to move this over here so it's not in the way. My favorite feature of Studio One is you can do some really cool things. If you click this button over here on the far left, I don't know if you can see it, but right here, the arrow that's kind of pointing in, right? This shows, this is what we call pre-fader processing, where you can put a plugin. For instance, I have this API channel strip. It might take forever to load just because my computer's being kind of slow right now for some reason. But what's cool is you can load this plugin on here and you can play, you can basically record through this plugin, and this will essentially capture the audio into Studio One. It bakes it in there. So that way there's no, like, you can't change it before. That's what I meant to say. It bakes it in there, so it's really cool. So this is a really interesting. This is emulating a API Vision analog console, which is really awesome. But yeah, you can record through this, and it burns it into the track, and then that sound is already kind of in there, which is really cool. So that's a really neat feature of Studio One. One of the only recording softwares that actually has kind of this pre-fader processing ability, which is really neat. But so that's basically the rundown. I wanted to do this kind of review on gear or on Studio One. And so, because I love Studio One, this is a very good, it's very easy for beginners too. If you're somebody that wants to get into recording, this is a very good DAW. This is a very good piece of software that is really easily accessible. There's not a lot of, you don't need to know a whole lot to really maneuver around and navigate the application. It's very user friendly. And this is what I started on 7 years ago before I started doing recording, audio recording and stuff. This is what I was using beforehand. It wasn't the professional version, but it was a very laid back version of Studio One. But this is what I used before, Pro Tools and Logic and all that other stuff. So this is a fantastic software. So thank you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more videos like this, please like, subscribe, share. I'm open to a lot of suggestions. Also, just so you know, I'm opening up another channel where I'm going to be doing reaction videos to all sorts of different stuffs, music, funny videos, audio videos, movie previews, things like that. So if there's any suggestions that you guys want me to react to as far as video goes, also put that in the comments as well. And stay tuned for that. I don't know exactly when I'm going to release those videos, but you'll see it. It's going to be kind of within the same. It's going to be a new channel called Iska Reacts. And so be on the lookout for that. But thank you guys for sticking with me on this. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.